Working Fans Podcast. Cool.
Yep.
All right, here we go. Coming down 3, 2.
Welcome back for another week of the Working Fans Podcast. This is AJ. I'm the former wrestler. We've got Dave, the ultimate fan, here with us. As we do every week, our producer Joe likes to make us sound good and makes us look way more professional than we actually are. As always, you can find us on Twitter, that's @FansWorking, Facebook, Working Fans Pod. We've got email where you can reach out to us and please contact us to let us know what you think of the podcast and for any ideas that you might have. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. We're on Instagram where you can keep up with us at workingfanswrestling_pod. And then you can now listen to us on all major platforms, including Anchor.fm. We're on Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Radio Public, Apple Podcasts, and you can actually check us out on YouTube. Now, it's important when you go onto the Apple Podcasts and YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a rating, let us know what you think so you can help us out and we can continue to do what we love and bring you guys in as fans.
Welcome back, fans, for another week of the 531, where we take our top 5 list on a particular subject, debate it down to a top 3, and then we pick a number 1 out of that group. And this week, we are talking the top feuds in wrestling history. We got Connor Elsey is bringing us a list. He's got CM Punk versus Samoa Joe, Sting versus the Great Muta, Mike Awesome versus Masato Tanaka, Austin versus McMahon. I love this one. Cornette versus Russo. And then as his honorable mention, Steamboat versus Flair. And after that list, I'm not even hating on Steamboat and Flair as an honorable mention. I think he gave us 6 heavy hitters.
I believe this is the same Connor who might have saved a merit at a Beyond Wrestling event I went to one time, too.
Yeah, young Connor Elsey. I believe he's Waterford High class of 2020. Shout out to him.
Hell of a guy. I think he also questioned me if I had the right to be sitting down in the seat that I was sitting in. I had to let him know that I was...
You should have told him graduate high school and then come talk to me then, Connor. I'll sit where the fuck I want to sit.
And you can talk to me with some bass in your voice.
Say it with your chest, little man.
I gotta be going to Scott from Ballintown, our boy. He don't F around. And he's got Flair on Steamboat right on top where it belongs. Through that honorable mention, Jazz. Then we got Austin versus McMahon, Taz versus Sabu, HBK versus Brett, WWE, although it was WWF at the time, versus WCW. Honorable mention to Jerry Lawler and Andy Kaufman because they did such a good job of making it feel real. And I told him we could include it as an honorable mention because he just loved the feud and he was on the fence about it. We're going to hear it a few times. Tommy Dreamer versus Raven.
That is not a bad list. I'm going to give you my list to show you how close Scott and my sensibilities are. We've been friends for, God, it's got to be 30 some odd years now. But I had Flair, Steamboat at the top of my list. Hart, Michaels right after that. Cornette, Russo third. Stone Cold McMahon fourth. And then I got to give it up to that Okada Omega. I wanted to give it up to Okada Tanahashi for what it meant to New Japan and just the generations over there, like almost being like close generation wise, but almost a class apart. But Okada and Omega did such crazy stuff that I had to give it to them. Who do you got next for a list?
Big thanks, Jonathan Griswold. Who's got Ric Flair versus Terry Funk, which is just an awesome feud. Terry Funk at one point puts a bag over Ric Flair's head and suffocates him, and they have to make an apology the following week. Flair, who was a bit claustrophobic, by the way, was not enjoying this angle at all. Raven versus Tommy Dreamer, feud that never died. I love the premise of it, how Tommy Dreamer could never get that one pinfall until Raven was leaving the company. And this feud, you're going to see a few times, Ciampa Gargano. Probably one of the best feuds of the modern era of wrestling right now. And let's take it to the classic era of wrestling again. The Freebirds versus the Von Erichs. Another great one right there. And then last but not least, he's got a tie. Austin McMahon and Minoru Suzuki and Tanahashi.
Those are not bad lists. Or not bad choices. Yeah, very much. Jason Miller got to us with a list. He has McMahon versus Stone Cold, obviously. Hogan versus Savage. Matt Hardy versus Edge. Brett versus Owen. Angle versus Benoit. And then as an honorable mention, Daniel Bryan versus The Authority.
Well, rather than go to Zach, I want to go with Randy because I forgot to write down his honorable mention, but I actually remember.
Let me guess.
Randy,
he agrees with Jason Miller.
No, he does not. I'm missing something here. Rock versus Austin. Steamboat versus Flair. Hogan versus Piper. That's a good one. I haven't seen it yet. That's a good one. Edge versus Cena. That's a good feud for that era. HBK versus Triple H. And his honorable mention, Tessa Blanchard versus Five.
Jesus Christ. I should have seen it coming. That is actually a really good list. And
good list, yeah.
Even though we clown on him about how much he picks Tessa for things, Tessa versus Taya was one of the better feuds that Impact had going through a rockier time. So I will give him that.
And props to put Hogan Piper on there because that was kind of the feud that set off Rock and Wrestling, the first WrestleMania. They had a match live on MTV. Mr. T got involved. Police got involved. So that was definitely a hot feud, one of the hottest feuds of all time.
And I would say one of the least talked about of Hogan's feuds because you'll hear Savage more often. You'll hear Warrior. Shit, you'll even hear like later day feuds that he had, like maybe his WrestleMania match with The Rock. But like, I don't think Piper gets brought up enough. Yeah.
No, Piper kicked it off.
So James William Lawrence III brought us a list. He's got Magnum TA versus Nikita Koloff, the Road Warriors versus the Russians, Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express, Dusty Rhodes versus the Horsemen, and Undertaker versus Mankind. I wrote it down as Man King, and I'm pretty sure there's no Man King. There's a Man Scout, Jake Manning.
Me and that guy are going to have some stuff similar on our list. Props to him for some of those NWA feuds he put on there.
Yeah, some real deep digs. 4 out of his 5 choices were NWA, and 3 were like classic. Who do you got for a list next?
Skip over here. I'm going to skip around. I'm going to go to Mike Flynn, who's got Raven and Tommy Dreamer. He also has Daniel Bryan versus the Authority figures because he basically said it was the organic nature of the feud and how it played out, where they legit, you could tell, didn't want Bryan to get over at that time, and he did nonetheless.
Wow, see, I thought Bryan versus the Authority was a weird pick, but to see 2 people pick it, I feel like I almost got to go back and watch more of that era of TV to really appreciate it better.
It's really one of the last, really great feuds because it organically happened. If you follow Bryan's journey, they did not push him. They did not want to push him to that level, but the yes chant just kept getting over and over to the point that there was a conference call where Vince McMahon actually said it's a vocal minority. It was a vocal minority that the yes chant was happening not only in WWE arenas everywhere, but in baseball fields, hockey games, basketball games, and it kind of became obvious after a while, hey, this Daniel Bryan gets over. So anyway, continuing on though, you also had Eddie Guerrero versus Rey Mysterio, which I was involved.
Ooh, that's a very good one.
It was a great feud in WCW, and then it goes on to WWE, where I just watched WWE Untold about this, where it was Eddie versus Ray, and it talked about the custody of Dominic, the ladder match. And I thought to myself, what a dumb storyline. But if you go back and watch it, Eddie Guerrero is so believable. He cuts such great promos, and the matches are so intense. And here we are, I want to say like 15 years later, and now Dominic Mysterio is going to be at SummerSlam this year, is a rumored match too. So how cool is that? Hats off for Flynn for putting Eddie Ray on this. He's got 2 more picks though. HBK versus Jericho. I'm going to say this. I got a lot to say about this list. So Flynn, you've all a good list here. HBK versus Jericho. This is Jericho, in my opinion. Go back and watch it. Best heel work ever. He's not going to get liked. He is mean. He legit punches Shawn Michaels' wife in the face, folks. All right? Go back and watch it. He has to apologize to HBK and claim it was an accident. pretty sure he fucking gave his wife a shot. He tells a story when Jericho was playing the heel that there was a kid and a father that were in an elevator, and they wanted his autograph. And Jericho said, I wanted to give it to him. I could relate to him, but I was committed more in my life to be in this field than ever, that I would not make eye contact or even look at this kid or this man. And in the meantime, this guy is bitching me out going, you're a scumbag, Jericho. How can you not sign my kid's autograph? And Chris refused to look at him and walked out. So that's commitment to a heel. Final list, though, on the list, Rock versus Triple H and the IC title feud specifically, because they were on the cusp of greatness and they were still firing off, and we knew there was going to be something special. Anyway, that's the twin list. I said a lot during that, but that fired me up. Very happy with that list.
That is a solid list, and imagine if Dominic turns heel at some point and takes Eddie's last name and somehow works that into the storyline. That would be wild.
You gotta give me goosebumps, motherfucker.
We got Tim Hartford brought us a list, and he has...
Oh, Tim Hartford?
Tim Hartford, you know him.
I do know Tim Hartford. Wow.
Do you really?
I do. There's actually a picture of him where we used to work. He's got the chicken wing put on him by Bob Backlund. So, yeah, actually, I went to a Survivor Series with Tim or two. So, yeah, I'm very familiar.
Oh, shit. So me and him got something in common. We both been put in the chicken wing by Backlund. He brought a list. Right. He's got Michaels versus Hart, Triple H versus Foley, Hardys versus Dudleys versus Edge and Christian, Brett versus Mr. Perfect, and then he's got Kai and Ty versus Val Venus to round out his list.
Of course he would. Oh, that's great. Yes, that is the famous choppy PT angle. Thanks to some cold weather and a little shrinkage, now the Big Foul boat team managed to survive that.
Thank God.
Look it up.
So who do you have next for a list?
Let's go Zach St. John, and that's the last person on my list other than mine. Zach St. John. We got Austin versus McMahon, Steamboat versus Flair, Gargano and Ciampa again, Hart versus HBK, and Raven versus Dreamer. Once again, him and his brother, English Flynn, have some similarities on some of this list. Well, basically, Flynn had Raven Dreamer, so yeah, these guys look alike.
Now we got a list from Charlie Pinkham next, who had Stone Cold versus The Rock. Stone Cold versus Vince. Papa Shango versus The Ultimate Warrior.
Oh, God.
Sting versus the NWO. And Hogan versus Macho Man. Not a bad list.
There you Papa Shango.
Chris Zauha. Always going to be Zoucha. You know it, bud. Shout out prayers for Chris Zoucha's dad going through some medical stuff at the moment. So whoever you pray to, pray for that dude. But he has Sting versus Flair, Midnight's versus Rock and Roll, Von Erichs versus Freebirds, Michaels versus Hart, and Austin versus Rock.
Good list. Solid.
Did we get a list from AJ?
No.
All right, fuck him. I thought we left him off. Here's Jason Gross's list. He has Raven versus Dreamer, Sabu versus Taz, Stone Cold versus McMahon, Rhodes versus the Four Horsemen, and Bischoff versus McMahon.
That's a good list.
Very
Bischoff
good list.
Called out Vince for a fight on a pay-per-view.
I know, and who actually showed up to that?
No.
Exactly. Dave, if you want to give us your list, and then we'll give loyal listener Jesse from New Hampshire the main event spot.
Did you get your list already? You did, right?
Yes, I did. I gave mine after Scott's because it had some similarities.
Oh, right. Similarities. They hit home in the field. Gotcha. All right. My list. Hogan and Andre. They threw the house. Come on. Andre ripped that cloth off him. The blood. Rowdy Piper. You're bleeding. Good stuff. Flair versus Funk. That is actually the first dude that popped in my mind when I started thinking about this stuff. New York Knockout. One of my favorite Classic Champions. Main event. Jim Ross, Gordon Soley with the ball. Gets no better. Rock and Roll Express versus Midnight Express. Folks, this feud spans several territories. Mid-South Wrestling, NWA. I believe they even had a match in the WWF at one point. Absolutely one of the... And Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Yeah, so tremendous feud. Dusty versus the Horsemen. One of the first big feuds in my childhood that I remember. And the first real legit shoot feud that I ever saw in wrestling. Blurred the lines, HBK and Bret Hart.
Sorry about that. I had a dog barking. That's a good list. We got, obviously, in the main event spot, Jesse from New Hampshire. He has Rock versus Austin, Hardys versus Dudleys versus Edge and Christian, Savage versus Steamboat, Cornette versus Russo, and Cena versus Edge.
Funny to see Cornette and Russo made it on this list twice. And also, I don't remember anyone else having Savage Steamboat on there, but that's a great feud to have on there. That's actually AJ would probably have had that on there because that's the one where Savage came down with a bell on Steamboat's neck. And AJ said, I did not know how they worked that as a child, and I was scared for Ricky.
Oh, wow.
There you go.
So now that we've got all our top 5 lists in, what, Flair Steamboat has to make it on, right?
Yeah, Flair Steamboat was more than Flair Funk, I guess, huh?
Flair Funk was like a close number 2, but Flair Steamboat definitely was on more. If you had to pick one of the Hogan feuds that's made it on a few lists, who would you give it to?
I think Hogan Andre kind of made the list a few more times on here. So I think Hogan Andre would be the bigger feud, was the more important feud. That being said,
and what do you want to give that last spot to? I feel like Von Erich's Freebirds or Midnight's Rock and Roll.
But how many times did like Austin McMahon or Austin Rock?
Austin McMahon made several.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess we got to give it to Austin McMahon on that one.
Yeah, I think we do. And so that's interesting. We have a real interesting list here. So Austin McMahon, Hogan Andre, what's that one? Rock and Roll Midnight Express?
Flair Steamboat.
Flair Steamboat. Okay, wow.
It's going to be hard to drop a first one off because I don't think Austin McMahon's going to be the obvious first one.
No, I don't think it is. No.
I mean, it's still in contention, but it's like, I don't know who to get rid of for. I almost think Hogan Andre, because even though it drew the house, Austin McMahon was like a bigger, more recent sensation. And what Flair Steamboat did for work rate wrestling and putting on like those truly classic matches and inspiring a generation, I feel like it's a step above Hogan Andre.
Let's look at this though differently. This is a feud, right? So I mean, the power. I mean, what was the more, maybe violent and bitter feud? Steamboat represented everything that was good, right? He was the family man, and Ric Flair was like the womanizing, partier. I mean, I guess we could drop Hogan Andre, honestly, because even though it threw the house, what was that feud really about? A couple big guys, maybe friendship being betrayed, but I don't think it was as personal as the other two.
And speaking of the other two being personal, which was more personal? Was it Flair Steamboat or was it Austin McMahon?
There's no doubt in my mind. Don't you ever, Joe, I own my own business now. Why is that? Because I don't want to work for a boss. And he did a Stone Cold Steve Austin, all right? You hate your boss. You want to drop that stack of dimes he calls the neck with a stunner. You want to do that when you walk into the office once in a while, Joe. You want to stun some people.
Yeah, I was going to say it's happened more often than I'd care to admit lately. you got me. I was going to make a case for Flair Steamboat, but it's been a bad fucking week, so fuck him. We're going Austin McMahon.
Austin McMahon, baby.
Shout out to my job.
Oh, hell yeah. Working Fans Podcast. Give me a hell yeah.
And Dave, you know what that music means. That means we have picked a top favorite feud, and it's got to go to Austin McMahon. So guys, it's very clear. I don't know the name of the Facebook group, Working Fans Podcast. Look it up. It might be Wrestling Podcast. I'm 100% that we are at Fans Working. We are Working Fans Wrestling _pod at gmail.com. That's probably the Instagram too. And workingfanspodcast.com. We got that domain for a year. You best believe I'm going to fucking remember that. I think fucking the top feud this week might be me versus Short-Term Memory. What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, you got the ass with, baby. I don't know if it's much of a feud. They walked all over you. They hit a jobber out of you.
Yeah, they stomped a mud hole in my ass and walked it dry on my fucking floor.
You dry. Dry shit.
All right, guys, we'll end it there and we'll see you next week. Thank you and have a good one.
All right, so that wraps us up for this week. Thank you again for listening to the Working Fans Podcast. So as always, you can find us on Twitter at FansWorking. Our Facebook page is Working Fans Wrestling Pod. We have email where you can reach out to us and let us know what you think also. That's workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Follow us on Instagram, workingfanswrestling_pod. And then as always, please continue to listen to us on Anchor.fm, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Radio Public, all your major platforms. If you're following us on Apple Podcasts, which we are also on now, and YouTube, please make sure you subscribe and give us a 5-star rating. It helps us bring you these podcasts where we get to talk to you and talk with you every week.